The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a bloody hue over Kepler-16's vast desert. Dr. Alan Mirzoff adjusted her protective goggles, wincing as the wind picked up. Her breath came in short, labored gasps, the oxygen mask barely keeping pace with her exertion. Jafar al-Hakim, the desert ghost, trudged alongside her, his eyes locked on the treacherous landscape ahead. Alan's thoughts churned with anticipation. She'd spent years studying the alien biology of this harsh world, yet so much remained shrouded in mystery. "We're close," she muttered, more to herself than to Jafar. "I can feel it." The wind howled, pelting them with a torrent of sand. Jafar grimaced, his voice barely audible over the maelstrom. "We need to find shelter." As if on cue, a monstrous sandstorm erupted from the horizon, devouring the dunes with unbridled ferocity. Alan clutched her data recorder to her chest, her pulse racing with a mix of fear and exhilaration. "There!" she shouted, pointing to a distant rock formation that promised refuge from the tempest. Sprinting towards safety, they narrowly slipped between the boulders just as the storm enveloped them. Huddled together, their breaths mingling in the cramped space, they waited for the wrath of Kepler-16 to pass. When the winds finally subsided, Alan peered out from their makeshift shelter, her eyes widening in disbelief. The storm had exposed a series of tunnels, winding deep into the earth like the gnarled roots of some ancient tree. Her heart pounded in her chest. This was it, the key to unlocking the secrets of the elusive sand dwellers. With renewed determination, Alan and Jafar descended into the subterranean labyrinth, their flashlights piercing the darkness. The air grew thick and stale, the weight of the desert pressing down upon them. Alan's mind raced with questions. What creatures lurked in these depths? What secrets did they hold? The silence was shattered by an unearthly screech, followed by a cacophony of clicks and hisses. Alan's stomach clenched as she locked eyes with the first of the sand dwellers. The creature stood nearly 7 feet tall, its lithe body covered in iridescent scales that shifted with the light. Its elongated snout writhed with tendrils, each one tipped with a razor-sharp barb. But it was the creature's eyes that truly unsettled Alan. Cold, calculating, and unmistakably intelligent. She could see the hunger in its gaze, the primal instinct to hunt and kill. "Move!" Jafar barked, shoving her forward. They sprinted through the tunnels, the sand dwellers hot on their heels. The creatures moved with uncanny grace, their tendrils snapping like whips as they closed the distance. Alan's thoughts raced, her scientific curiosity warring with the primal urge to survive. These creatures were more than mere animals. They were a complex and dangerous species that would stop at nothing to defend their territory. As the tunnels narrowed, Alan and Jafar found themselves cornered, the sand dwellers closing in for the kill. With a desperate cry, Alan hurled her data recorder at the nearest creature, the impact causing a small explosion of blinding light. Seizing the opportunity, they clambered up a nearby wall, narrowly escaping the frenzied swarm below. As they emerged onto the surface, gasping for breath, Alan's mind reeled with the implications of their discovery. The sand dwellers were not mere beasts. They were a force to be reckoned with, a testament to the incredible complexity of Kepler-16's ecosystem. And as the sun set on the horizon, casting its eerie light across the desert, Alan knew that their journey had only just begun. Drenched in sweat and grit, Dr. Alan Mirzoff and Jafar al-Hakim picked their way through the sunken labyrinth, the walls pressing in on them like a living beast. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and the distant, unnerving echoes of sand-dweller activity. With her flashlight casting eerie shadows, Alan inspected the tunnel walls, noting intricate patterns carved into the stone. These markings, they're not natural formations. They're intentional, almost like a language. Jafar whistled lowly, his eyes reflecting the dancing light. So, we're not just dealing with smart predators. They might have an entire civilization hidden beneath the sands. It's a remarkable discovery, Alan murmured, her heart pounding with excitement. But if they view us as a threat, then we're in more trouble than we thought. Jafar's voice trailed off, and he tightened his grip on his makeshift spear. Alan's thoughts raced as they delved deeper into the tunnels, her scientific curiosity a relentless force driving her forward. The Sand Dwellers' intelligence could be the key to understanding Kepler-16's ecosystem and ensuring the colony's survival. Suddenly, the passage opened up, revealing a hidden oasis bathed in ethereal blue light. The sight took Alan's breath away, and she stumbled forward, her eyes wide with wonder. Lush vegetation swayed gently in the underground breeze, and crystal-clear water pooled at the base of a small waterfall. As they approached the water's edge, a figure emerged from behind a cluster of glowing fungi. She was tall and slender, her long, wavy hair cascading down her back like a dark waterfall. Alan recognized her immediately. Dr. Isabella Chang, a geologist and close friend who had been studying Kepler-16's geology. "Izzy?" Alan called out, her voice trembling with relief and disbelief. Izzy's face broke into a warm smile as she moved towards them. "Alan, Jafar, I can't believe it's you. What on earth are you doing down here?" "We could ask you the same thing," Jafar said, lowering his spear. "We've had quite the adventure, and we think we've stumbled upon something extraordinary." Alan shared their encounter with the Sand Dwellers and their suspicions about the creature's intelligence. Izzy listened intently, her eyes widening with each revelation. "I've discovered something too," Izzy said, her voice filled with awe. "This oasis. It's not a natural formation. I believe it's the remnant of an ancient civilization, one that may have been wiped out by the very beings you've been chasing." A chill ran down Alan's spine as she gazed at the hidden oasis, its beauty now tinged with a haunting mystery. Together, they stood on the precipice of a discovery that could change everything they knew about Kepler-16 and its enigmatic inhabitants. The air within the hidden oasis hummed with the energy of ancient secrets waiting to be unearthed. Izzy's voice, filled with wonder and urgency, reverberated through the hollow caverns as she shared her groundbreaking findings with Alan and Jafar. Her slender fingers traced over the weathered holographic images, projecting an ethereal glow onto the surrounding rock formations. "These ruins, they're not just the remnants of a long-lost civilization. They're the key to understanding the Sand Dwellers," Izzy explained, her eyes gleaming with determination. "Their infrastructure reveals advanced engineering techniques, far beyond what we'd expect from a species that appears to be primitive." Alan felt a chill run down her spine as she studied the holographic images, her heart racing with the implications of Izzy's research. Jafar's expression grew more somber as he listened, his hands clenching around the worn grip of his spear. "The Sand Dwellers. They're not the mindless beasts we once thought," Alan murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're the remnants of a once great civilization, driven underground by some unknown cataclysm." Jafar nodded, his gaze locked onto the holographic images. "We must delve deeper into the desert, uncover the truth behind their origins, and find a way to coexist before our presence incites further violence." With a newfound sense of purpose, the trio ventured deeper into the unforgiving desert, guided by Izzy's research and Jafar's uncanny ability to navigate the treacherous terrain. The landscape shifted around them, each step revealing new dangers and challenges that threatened to derail their mission. As they pressed on, Alan couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, as if the very sands beneath their feet concealed dark, malevolent forces waiting to strike. She held her breath, listening for any sign of movement, but the desert remained eerily still. The winds howled in protest, whipping up blinding clouds of sand that threatened to engulf the team. Jafar's keen instincts led them to the shelter of a hidden cave, its entrance obscured by the relentless onslaught of the storm. They huddled together for warmth, their bodies trembling from exhaustion and fear. Aylin's thoughts raced as she stared into the darkness, her mind consumed by the enigma of the Sand Dwellers and the role humanity may have played in their tragic downfall. She clenched her fists, her resolve hardening like a stone within her chest. When the storm finally subsided, they emerged from the cave, their eyes burning with determination. Together, they would uncover the truth hidden beneath the sands and forge a new path forward for both their people and the enigmatic creatures that haunted the shifting dunes of Kepler-16. Alan's heart raced as they finally approached the ancient ruins, its weathered stone facade looming ominously against the dimming sky. The air seemed to hum with an unspoken energy, as if the very sands held their breath in anticipation of what secrets they would uncover. As they carefully navigated the labyrinthine corridors, Alan's flashlight flickered across intricate carvings adorning the walls. She traced her fingers over the alien symbols, a shiver running down her spine as she whispered, "These inscriptions, they're not just crude markings. They're a sophisticated language, a testament to their intelligence." Jafar's eyes widened in awe as he examined a peculiar artifact, its surface etched with intricate patterns. "This appears to be some sort of technological device, far more advanced than anything we've encountered on this planet." Izzy nodded in agreement, her voice barely above a whisper. "It seems the Sand Dwellers were once a spacefaring civilization, capable of incredible feats of engineering." The weight of their discovery bore down on Alan, her mind racing with implications. As she gazed upon the remnants of a once great society, she couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. A sudden gust of wind echoed through the desolate halls, sending a chill down Alan's spine. She whirled around, her eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. The shadows seemed to writhe and twist, as if the very walls harbored hidden dangers. Alan's thoughts began to coalesce, her fear giving way to cold, hard realization. Human colonization. We've been disturbing their sacred sites, their ancient history. It's no wonder they've been attacking us. We've awakened their territorial instincts. Jafar's brow furrowed as he considered her words. But these attacks, they're too coordinated, too strategic. It's almost as if they're being led by some sort of conscious entity. Izzy's eyes widened in horror as the implications became clear. "We have to warn the others, before it's too late." Together, they retraced their steps through the sinister ruins, their footsteps echoing like distant whispers in the oppressive silence. As they emerged into the unforgiving desert, the weight of their discovery hung heavy upon them, a grim reminder of the delicate balance between progress and the preservation of an ancient, enigmatic civilization. Racing against the encroaching darkness, Dr. Alan Mirzov clenched her jaw as the rover's engine roared beneath her. The wind howled outside, pelting the vehicle with a barrage of sand and dust. Jafar al-Hakim gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white as he fought to keep the rover steady on the treacherous terrain. Izzy Chang huddled in the back, her eyes wide with apprehension as she clutched the ancient artifacts they'd uncovered. Alan's thoughts churned like the tempest outside. She couldn't shake the image of the ruins, the inscriptions that spoke of a proud and advanced civilization, now reduced to little more than whispers in the wind, and the realization that humanity's encroachment had awakened the Sand Dwellers' territorial instincts gnawed at her conscience. "Faster, Jafar," she urged, her voice barely audible over the cacophony of the storm. "We have to warn Governor Loxley before it's too late." Jafar nodded, his gaze fixed on the path ahead. The rover lurched as it climbed a steep dune, and for a moment, it seemed as if they would be swallowed by the swirling sands. But with a final defiant roar, the engine propelled them forward, and they crested the dune, the lights of the colony flickering in the distance like a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. As they neared the colony, Alan's heart pounded in her chest. She knew that convincing Governor Loxley wouldn't be easy. The implications of her findings were too immense, too unsettling. But the thought of the Sand Dwellers' retaliation, of the lives that hung in the balance, spurred her on. Upon their arrival, Alan wasted no time in requesting an audience with the governor. She could feel the weight of the artifacts in her pack, the silent testimony of a civilization on the brink of annihilation. As she entered the governor's office, she steeled herself, her eyes meeting Loxley's stern gaze with unwavering determination. "Governor," she began, her voice steady despite the turmoil within, "I must speak with you about our recent discoveries. I believe they hold the key to understanding the Sand Dwellers' attacks." Loxley regarded her skeptically, his brow furrowed. "Dr. Mirzov, I appreciate your dedication, but we've been over this. The Sand Dwellers are little more than mindless beasts, driven by instinct and little else." Alan's resolve hardened, and she reached into her pack, retrieving the ancient relics. "I understand your reservations, Governor, but please, look at these. They're inscriptions, evidence of a highly advanced civilization, and I believe that our colonization efforts have awakened their territorial instincts, provoking these attacks." Locksley scrutinized the artifacts, his expression unreadable. For a moment, Alan feared that her pleas would fall on deaf ears, that the weight of his responsibilities would blind him to the truth. But then, slowly, the governor's stern facade cracked, and the barest hint of comprehension flickered in his eyes. "If what you say is true, Dr. Mirzoff," he murmured, his voice heavy with the gravity of the situation, "then we must act swiftly to protect our people. I'll assemble a council to discuss our next steps." Alan nodded, a small, triumphant smile playing at the corners of her lips. She knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, that the fate of the colony and the ancient civilization that lay buried beneath the sands hung precariously in the balance. But for now, she had hope. And in the face of the unknown, that was all she could ask for. The colony's once peaceful dome shuddered under the relentless onslaught of the sand dwellers. Alan could hear their chilling screeches echo through the night, punctuated by the sporadic gunfire of the defenders. The once tranquil oasis had transformed into a hellscape of whirling sand and chaos. As she braced herself against a trembling wall, Alan's mind raced with the implications of their discovery. The traitor among Captain Patel's ranks had not only betrayed their trust, but had also awakened an ancient enemy that now threatened their very existence. She gritted her teeth, her jaw clenched in determination. "I won't let them destroy everything we've built here." Captain Patel's voice crackled through the comms unit, strained but resolute. "Dr. Mirzoff, we're losing ground. We need a solution, and fast." Alan closed her eyes, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew what she had to do, despite the risks. "Captain, I have an idea. It's dangerous, but it might be our only chance." "I'm listening." "We release the nanites into Kepler-16's core. The energy surge should create a pacifying frequency that resonates with the sand dwellers, calming their aggression." Alan hesitated, then added, "But there's a chance it could have unforeseen consequences on the planet's environment." There was a brief silence before Captain Patel responded. "Understood, Dr. Mirzoff. It's a gamble, but if it's our only option—" "I know," Alan whispered, her stomach knotting with dread. She glanced at the research tablet in her hand, the inscriptions of the ancient civilization staring back at her. "I'll prepare the nanites for deployment. Just buy me some time." "We'll hold them off as long as we can," Captain Patel assured her. "Godspeed, Dr. Mirzoff." As the comms connection faded, Alan set to work, her fingers trembling as she calibrated the nanites for their perilous journey into the planet's core. She knew that the fate of the colony, and possibly the ancient civilization they had inadvertently awakened, rested on her shoulders. With a deep, steadying breath, she whispered to herself, "For the greater good." And as the horde of sand dwellers pressed ever closer, Alan Mirzoff released the nanites into the heart of Kepler-16, praying that her desperate gambit would save them all. Alan's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the hive-minded sand dwellers cease their relentless assault on the colony. The nanites had worked, their calming frequency resonating through the creatures and pacifying their aggression. The once turbulent sands now lay eerily still, as if holding its breath. She allowed herself a moment of relief, but it was short-lived. Her research tablet buzzed with an incoming message, and her blood ran cold as she read the new data. The nanites were accelerating Kepler-16's environmental degradation, a consequence she had feared but hoped to avoid. "Governor Locksley," she began, her voice tight with urgency, "I have an update on the nanites." Locksley's eyes met hers, the weight of the colony's fate reflected in his gaze. "Go on, Dr. Mirzoff." "The nanites, they're working, but they're also causing irreversible damage to the planet's core. It's accelerating Kepler-16's decay." Alan's voice wavered, her hands clenching around the tablet. Locksley's expression hardened, and he turned to address the assembled group. "We have a decision to make. Stay and face the consequences of our actions, or leave this world and its inhabitants to their fate." Jafar al-Hakim spoke up, his gravelly voice cutting through the tension. "We can't risk the lives of our people for the sake of an alien species. We must evacuate." Alan's thoughts swirled, her conscience torn between her loyalty to her fellow humans and her desire to protect the sand dwellers. She glanced at Isabella Chang, who offered a small nod of encouragement. "But what about the sand dwellers?" Alan asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Can we truly abandon them after what we've done?" Locksley sighed, rubbing his temples. "I understand your concerns, Dr. Mirzoff, but our primary responsibility is to the safety of this colony. We cannot sacrifice our own survival for theirs." The room fell silent, the gravity of their decision pressing down on them like the oppressive sands of Kepler-16. Alan's heart ached as she wrestled with the implications of their choice, the weight of her own role in their predicament heavy on her shoulders. As the colony prepared to evacuate, Alan couldn't help but wonder if they were making the right decision. Would the sand dwellers forgive them for their actions, or would they be forever haunted by the ghosts of a dying world? In the shadow of the massive evacuation ships, their hulls groaning under the strain of the encroaching desert, Dr. Alan Mirzoff stood tall. Her sharp eyes scanned the horizon, narrowing as a swirling cloud of sand and darkness took shape. The traitorous human, Kale, and his army of sand dwellers were closing in, their guttural cries piercing the air like a chorus of the damned. "Defenders, to your positions!" Governor Locksley's voice rang out, echoing through the desolate landscape. His stern gaze locked onto Alan's, a silent exchange of resolve passing between them. "Kira, stay close," Alan barked, her words clipped and authoritative. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, her breaths coming in ragged gasps as adrenaline surged through her veins. "I've got your back, Dr. Mirzoff," Kira responded, her voice steady despite the fear etched on her face. As the first wave of sand dwellers surged forward, Alan's analytical mind raced, her thoughts a whirlwind of strategies and contingencies. She knew that their only hope lay in holding them off long enough for the evacuation to be completed. The battlefield erupted into a chaotic symphony of screams and gunfire, the air thick with the acrid scent of smoke and the metallic tang of blood. Alan fought with every ounce of her strength, her movements precise and efficient as she took down one sand dweller after another. In the heat of the conflict, she caught sight of Kale, his twisted grin and maniacal laughter sending a chill down her spine. She knew that he was the key to the sand dwellers' strategy, and that taking him out could turn the tide of the battle. Gritting her teeth, Alan pushed forward, her determination fueling her every step. She dodged and weaved through the frenzied melee, her eyes locked on her target. As she closed the distance between them, she could feel the weight of the colony's fate resting on her shoulders. "Kale!" she roared, her voice reverberating through the chaos. He turned to face her, his eyes gleaming with malice. "Dr. Mirzoff, you're more stubborn than the sands themselves," he sneered, raising his weapon. Time seemed to slow as Alan raised her own gun, her fingers trembling with the weight of the moment. She could hear the distant cries of the evacuating colonists, their voices a chorus of desperation and hope. With a deep breath, she squeezed the trigger, her shot ringing out like a clarion call. Kale's smile faltered, his eyes widening in shock as the bullet found its mark. He crumpled to the ground, his lifeless body swallowed by the shifting sands. As if in response to their leader's demise, the sand dwellers' attack faltered, their ranks beginning to break. Alan let out a sigh of relief, her body sagging with exhaustion. But there was no time to rest, not yet. "Retreat!" Locksley's voice boomed, his authoritative tone cutting through the din of battle. "Protect the evacuation ships at all costs." As the defenders fell back, reforming their lines around the evacuation ships, Alan couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. They had fought against impossible odds and emerged victorious, their resilience and determination a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. But even as the last of the evacuation ships roared to life, their engines sending plumes of sand and dust billowing into the air, Alan knew that their fight was far from over. They had left Kepler-16 behind, but the scars of their struggle would remain with them forever, a haunting reminder of the choices they had made and the price they had paid. And as the colony soared into the inky blackness of space, their eyes turned toward the horizon and the uncertain future that lay ahead, Alan couldn't help but wonder. Had they truly done the right thing?